Hey guys, it's Casey and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So for today's video, as you know by the title, I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, and that's body modification. I am a huge fan of modification. I think it's something that if it's something you want to do, like do the research and do it. Like don't just do it on a whim, but do the research. So yeah. So for today, I thought that I would look up some piercing myths slash facts and answer them based on my personal belief. And again, I'm going to say it again, it's my personal opinion. It's my personal belief. Every person who has piercings or tattoos or body modification is going to think differently. This is just my personal opinion on some of these myths, I guess. So let's get into the video. First myth is that piercings are totally temporary, and that is not a myth. I think it's true because piercings are literally pushing a needle through your skin. I mean, and think if you cut yourself, what happens? Like, you're gonna get a scar. Now, clearly, I mean, there are ways to, like, reduce it. If you stretch piercings, sorry about the guinea pigs. If you stretch piercing, the scars are going to be more noticeable. Earlobe, all of these on my ear right here, like if I take them out, leave them out for days, I can still see the holes. My nose is definitely going to scar just because, like, it's just, there's always going to be a little dent or hole there. I think my conch will probably always have, like, a little mark. But, I mean, the piercings are tiny, you know, so they're not that noticeable. My brother had his lip pierced and, like, you don't even notice the scar really. So yeah, they're not temporary. They're temporary in the sense you could take them out and then they're gone, but they're not temporary they're not totally temporary in the sense that you're going to have some scarring. The next one is that nipple piercings hurt breastfeeding. Now, I really can't touch on this because I don't have a child, or B, my nipples pierced. TMI for some of you, but I've heard that it's not that bad. Like, I've really heard it's not that bad. If you have, like, if your kid latches good, I've heard that it's not that bad. I have one friend who has her nipples pierced as a kid, and she was like, yeah, it hurt for a little bit, and then you just kind of get used to it, but it's not unmanageable. The next one is that if a hole closes up, you can just pierce it again. I would say this is true, that it's a myth, because you can never pierce in the same spot. I mean, they might try, but then you're piercing through scar tissue, which is A, going to be harder to pierce through, and B, it's going to hurt way more. Like, I've had my belly button pierced 3 times, and each time has hurt 10 times worse than the previous. And at this point, like, I don't even try, like, I don't even want it done again because I have so much scar tissue that, like, it's just ridiculous, and it's going to be worse each time, so, yeah. The next myth is that unusual piercings heal slower. I mean, I think it depends on the piercing, if you ask me. I mean, flash-like lobes, nose, like lip. I think a lip is considered, I want to say it's considered an oral piercing, and it heals faster just because it's a mouth piercing. But obviously, if you're piercing your nose and your ear lobe, it's going to take less time to heal because you're just piercing a piece of flesh. But if you get into the territory of, like, me, where I have, like, my rook and my date and my conch, like, those take about a year. Like, it took a solid 1.5 years, I want to say, before, like, both of my rooks, like, I considered, that I considered fully healed and, like, that I could change. And I actually don't change them. A, because I like the jewelry that's in there is just barbells, and B, just because, like, I don't want to mess with it. But it was about a good 1.5 years before, like, they were healed, and my date is only at about the 4-month mark. I got it pierced, like, December 4th, and it's, like, March 7th. So it's at, like, the December, January, February, March. It's at the 3-month mark, and it's just now getting to the point where, like, if I do this, like, it's not irritating to it, and I can deep clean in, and then it's fine. But I think unusual piercings, it just depends on the piercing. I mean, if they're talking, like, genital piercing, I don't know anything about that. You would have to consult your piercer. If you're talking, like, rook, date, conch, like, labrae, nape piercings in the back of your neck, like, I don't know. Like, I assume it would just depend on the classification of piercing. I like this one. Myth that ear piercings are uncomplicated. That is a fucking lie. That is a myth. Part of my language. Because ear piercings are extremely complicated. Especially if you have a hard time healing piercings. Like, I had my tragus pierced for 5 months and it just didn't work. No matter how good I clean it, no matter how much I didn't sleep on it, because I'm a right side sleeper. Like, I sleep on this side and I had my tragus on my left because I knew that it would be up and it wouldn't get pressed on or knocked, like, in my sleep. That's why I chose the side. It just didn't heal right. Like, I don't know if it was just my body. I mean, it healed, but it eventually started to migrate, which for a cartilage piercing is a little bit weird. But again, like, it's just something that I think it, again, depends on the piercing. But ear piercings are complicated. I mean, especially like a rook, especially like a rook, you're piercing a very small area, and there's so many blood vessels, especially a conch, like, you should candle, like, the back of your ear to make sure, like, there's no blood vessels. I mean, it's just one of those things that, like, I think ear piercings are actually very complicated. Especially for someone like me who has a myriad of ear piercings. Like, I have 20 ear piercings. Yeah. Like, the space gets smaller and smaller, so I feel like they have less room to work with, and the precision has to be on point with placement, especially, like, my daith, because I do have my rook pierced and it hangs over. So I think that ear piercings are very complicated. So, yeah, but again, I guess it also depends on the person. Myth ointment helps hearing. You should never put ointment on a piercing. That's like the kiss of death, I feel like, and it even says so on the thing. It exacerbates piercing healing, and it can stick to the piercing and infect it. I used to do like Dove soap and water, and I would do a Q-tip, put it with water, do it on the Dove soap, a clean Q-tip, before you at me at this, a clean Q-tip. And then I would flip the Q-tip over to, like, the other clean side and then run water on that and wipe away the soap and just get it in clean. Now, I'm a religious believer in saline, and it's 1/4, again, pardon the guinea pigs. Again, it's 1/4 a teaspoon of salt in a cup of warm water, and then I always like to warm the water first and then put the salt in and then stir it, and it dissolves, and it makes like a really borderline, it makes like a really basic saline solution. That's what I've used on my rook and my daith, or doth, however you say it. And I have had no issues. I feel like the soap eventually irritates my piercings, which is why I stick with saline. And it just does really good things, and I've never had an issue with it. But never put ointment on a piercing, ever, 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 ever. Ever, ever, ever. Piercing parlors are always regulated. That, I would say that is a myth, because, like, I don't know how they're regulated. I've never really, like, looked into that. I know that there are 2 places in my area I trust, and that's Chicago Tattoo Factory, and Insight Studios. And I trust those places. I trust one for piercing and one for tattooing. And they're just the places that, like, I've gone to since I was younger, like, especially Tattoo Factory. I get all my piercings there, like my major ones, and I just think they do a really good job, and I've never had an issue with, like, a major infection or it being bad, or, yeah. So, yeah. But I don't know how piercing parlors are regulated, and I don't even know, and it says here only 37 out of 50 states regulate their body piercing, so I would just do your research, call call piercing shops, go online, read reviews, definitely do your research on, like, where you want to go piercers, and yeah, and it should be fine. Myth, piercing guns are safe. That is the biggest myth ever. Piercing guns are horrible. And I am a hypocrite, because I have gotten ear piercing with piercing guns. I will never do it again, because I had most of my cartilages done with piercing guns. And that was when it was considered the way to go. And it was considered, like, what you should do. I mean, mind you, the last cartilage piercing I got with piercing gun was probably 10, 15 years ago. Like, I was still, like, I was, like, in high school. the last gun piercing I got. Everything since then I've done with needles. So it's been a hot minute. Piercing guns are horrible. It shatters cartilage. It rips. It's blunt force trauma. You know, needles like just make space and they take out a piece of skin, essentially, especially if it's a hollow needle. But guns are blunt force trauma. Like, it's just shoving it through. Like, it's no different than, like, shoving a safety pin through your ear. Don't do that, by the way. That was it. Those were the myths. Again, they were the ones that I thought were worth answering and that I thought were the most common things. And that they were the most things that people say. Now, it's one of those things that it's going to vary person to person. If you like body modification, do your research. Go to a reputable place. If you're younger than 18 and cannot sign, if your parents say no, let them say no. Just do it when you're 18. And I know, like, people are going to kill me for saying that. But, like, my mom, when I wanted to get a piercing, she was so anti me getting piercings for the longest time. Just because, like, she wasn't a huge believer in them. And she has piercings. She has 3 and 2 and then her belly button pierced. And she's cool about it. I think when I was younger, she was a bit more hesitant. I think when I hit, like, junior high school, I think it got to the point where, like, if I wanted a piercing, she was like my nose or my belly button, which were the main ones and some of these top ones, she was like, no. And then I'd come back and be like, but why not? And I worked in high school and I paid for them and all I needed her was sign the waiver. And I think she was just, I think, like, the way she said it to people, because people would be like, aren't you worried? Like, your kid is on these piercings. Like, oh my God, like, your son has his lip pierced. Your daughter's full of holes. Like my brother's lip pierced, he had his industrial, he had a cartilage piercing. Like we dyed our hair. And she was like, well, hair is hair. It can be changed and it can always grow back. And with piercing, she was like, I would rather take my kid, like, if they're going to do it, I would rather take my kid to a place that I know is going to do it right and professionally and have it be clean and let my kid pay for it. But I'd rather sign the waiver at a professional place that's good, that they've researched, that we trust, than potentially just have them do it themselves. Like, I see so many people, like, on TikTok and online that, like, buy piercing guns or piercing staplers. They do it themselves. And I'm like, oh my God, just go to a proper place and just pay the money and have it done right. You're going to have less issues. It's going to look better. It's going to not be as painful. And I think my mom just got to the point where she's like, no, I'd rather that I take my kid to a professional place and know they're getting it done right than have them turn around and, like, do it in the bathroom. You know, when I wanted my nose pierced, which I have a stud in right now because I'm coming off a cold, like, my brain was just getting in the way and angry. I think when I wanted my nose piercing, she was so against it because she does not like facial piercings, like eyebrows, lips, tongue. Like, she's not a fan of. Ear piercings are one thing, but facial are a whole other thing for her. And I wanted my nose pierced, and I asked her for, like, a year. And I respected to an extent. I mean, I annoyed the shit out of her and wanted it done. But eventually she was just like, fine, like, if you really want it, you have to pay for it, but we'll go. And we actually went, we actually had to go to 3 different, I wanted it done at a place that I probably shouldn't have gone to, but they did my first blood bump piercing and it was fine, and I wanted to go back, and they actually wouldn't let my mom sign for me because I was 16, even though she was my mom. I had my school ID. She had her driver's license. She was an adult and could consent. They actually wouldn't do it because of the facial piercing and I was underage. We went to another place and it was the same thing. They wouldn't do it. And then finally, like, I contacted the guy who did my belly button piercing, who had moved shops to Chicago Tattoo Factory. And I contacted him and he said, yeah, we'll do it, like, as long as you have, like, consent. And I was like, yeah, my mom's with me, and he had dealt with me before, and he had dealt with me a few months before with fixing my belly button piercing, and I had also gone in for cartilage piercing. He's like, yeah, like, I mean, I'm not going to do it without consent, So me and my mom went and he did it, and I've had it since I was 16. I'm 31 now, so do the math, it's been like 15 years. But yeah, I mean, I think she just got to that place. So if you want a piercing and you're underage, just wait. Just wait. Because your mind might change. And, like, it's just worth going to the proper place. Same with tattoos. Like, if you want a tattoo and you are not 18 or 21, don't just go to a tattoo place. And, like, just don't go to some janky tattoo place that they'll tattoo an underage person. Wait and go to a good tattoo place where it's going to look good. You know, my favorite thing ever, and I heard this is, tattoo is a marriage and a piercing is a mistress. And I loved it because tattoos are permanent. Like, they're on your skin, they're in your skin. Like, you can laser them off, but your skin's never going to be like it was without it. You're going to have scarring, and you're always, I feel like, going to have a faint remnants of that piercing. I mean, am I going to love my tattoos when I'm 85? Probably not. I mean, they're meaningful. I wouldn't have gotten them if I didn't feel like they were meaningful. Am I going to love them when I'm 85? Probably not. Will I love them in 3 years? Probably. 10 years? Maybe, maybe not. And I know that. But yeah, like, just go to the right place. Do your research. Be smart. Don't go to some back alley place. Because you're probably just going to end up not liking it, and you're probably going to end up with problems later. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I make videos every week on anything and everything. If you want me to talk more about body modification, let me know, because I love talking about it. It's fun. It's something I feel like isn't really talked about. So yeah, I will see you guys next time. Have a great weekend, and I will talk to you later.